Hello everyone and welcome to episode 17 of the Content Show. Who would have thought we'd make it? This week we're talking about the evolution of memes into a more mainstream form of content and the ongoing social media advertising boycott, plus our branded content picks of the week. Coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Content Show. I'm Simon Carney and we're joined with our usual Brains Trust, David Austin, Editorial Content Director, and Artur Akhmetsyonov, Scripted Content Director and Singapore's most famous Russian comedian. How are my plugs working for you, Artur? Are you getting lots of fan mail?
Zero, so I guess you can stop. A/B testing completed. With all the stand-up clubs closed, there is nothing to drive traffic to.
I will just keep going. I'm just going to keep saying it until one day it's true.
Yeah, one day you will see me on Netflix and then you see I did it.
Exactly. You'll have to thank me.
I will. Special thanks in the credits roll.
All right. So today we're talking about two things: memes and the social media boycott, which is really rolling news at the moment. Everything's changing every day. But first on memes. One thing I've noticed about memes lately is that meme-like content is starting to go mainstream. Now, I know this would horrify the meme community if the normies start creating stuff and it actually gets interest. But I've been looking at some of the feeds on Instagram, and there's quite a bit of content out there using the meme format of an image and a bit of descriptive text, but it's less in the sort of comic subculture mode or the political commentary mode, and more in just sort of general information giving, which I think is quite interesting for marketers because it means that memes become a more acceptable tool for the content marketing mix.
Yeah, that's for sure. Plus, of course, memes are quite easy to create. And I guess if marketers and communications professionals see that there is something extra that they can throw into the mix, because it's basically image with some caption, right? And as you said, if they don't have this pressure of being funny, because being funny in the corporate world is a very stressful thing.
And very risky.
And very risky. So if they will have a mandate, just, okay, you want to increase your reach, you want to post more often, just use some images with text just to communicate some information, I'm sure a lot of them will jump into this bandwagon.
I think this is behind the rise of Instagram as a sort of news and information platform.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, the format is understood by everyone now. It's not like anyone's going to receive it and be like, "What is this? Why are you sending me a picture with text?" Everyone knows exactly what it is. And it's also things that can be done super cheap and quickly with your phone or with desktop software. It doesn't require anything special. And everyone knows how to do it. I also think it's becoming more useful for like internal communications, when people want to share something on an internal WhatsApp group or, poke fun at a in-joke, that's the perfect thing. Someone can slap it together in about 3 minutes and then have everybody in the office, sharing the same joke. It's easy when it's internal. When it's external, then you have to be extra careful.
Exactly. I think it also, it links very closely to the carousel format. I've seen some memes where it's like a 2-frame carousel where there's sort of like it puts an idea out there and then there's a conclusion to it, and even more carousels. So it's like telling a story, but the interesting aspect of carousels is they're interactive in a way that most content isn't. So you can go backwards and forwards like you can in a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like the format again, it follows more or less like the joke structure, right? Where you have the basic elements of setup and punchline. So you will have at minimum 2 frames. So the first is kind of telling the basis, the foundational information, which doesn't have to be funny. And then you click to the second one, and then you see the punchline. In memes, it's kind of like in 1 frame, but yeah, if you break it into carousel, you can have 2 or 3 of them. But I think, yeah, again, like if it becomes more and more mainstream, I think a lot of meme purists will be very annoyed because they're like, oh no, they took our thing that was beautiful and precious and they ruined it.
Exactly. And then their memes will just become less and less understandable to us normies.
Exactly. Underground, niche.
So the next thing is the social media boycotts. Now, this is in response to Facebook's refusal to deal with the hate speech issue on its platform. And we've just seen, as we're recording this just overnight in the US or the day before, Unilever has pulled its ads from Facebook for 6 months. I believe Facebook is starting to respond. The share price took a big hit. There was a story going around yesterday that Mark Zuckerberg's personal wealth had dropped by $7 billion as a result of this. Twitter has managed to address some of these issues, but it's not been unaffected by this as well, with advertisers pulling for them. What do you think this is? Is it simply unsafe advertising?
Well, I think this is finally the industry dealing with this unresolved issue. This has been kind of simmering there for years now. And of course, it follows the election cycle in the US largely. There was the whole issue in 2016 with the Cambridge Analytica scandal and, the entire business model that Facebook created where they're taking money for all kinds of political advertising. Now, with the increased awareness and public pressure has really ratcheted up. So big brands are taking notice, and they at least don't want to be tainted by the scandal that's surrounding Facebook. And as we point out in our blog, it's a very easy thing for them to do, to just pause their advertising spend temporarily, and they get a few bonus points from those concerned about the issue. And hopefully that at some point Facebook will come up with a policy that works, that can allow their advertisers to spread their message, but protect, or I should say limit, harmful hate speech.
Yeah, I think that it's good to see. Facebook is 98% advertiser funded, so it's a good. I guess the advertisers saying, "Come on, listen to us. We're paying your way here." And of course, no advertiser like Unilever in the old days would have advertised in White Supremacist Weekly or something like that. I actually don't know where all these big brand ads are. I never see them on Facebook or YouTube. All I see are crappy real estate investment seminars and stuff like that. I wish some of that big dollar advertising was coming through to me. At least it's a bit more interesting.
Yeah. Your demographic profile is dictating what you see there, Simon. Sorry to say.
No ice cream, only property.
Yeah, and then I got served. There was a spate of ads for wills the other day, so I don't know what that's telling me.
Right.
It's time to move on. Maybe that's what it's the signal. But I think it's been like, to add on what David was saying, this debate about what these platforms are has been around for a while, because essentially you have kind of like three angles, right? Because all of them say that, oh, we are a technology company. We're a technology company. On the other hand, that they're all ad companies, be it Facebook or Google or Twitter, right? They're all ad companies from the business model perspective. But from the third angle, they're all media companies. And there was a lot of debate about treating them as media, and again, like regulation-wise, kind of like how they treat demographics and audiences. And they were like, no, we're not media, we're tech or ad company. So like, there is only so many years you can avoid answering to these questions. And of course, again, like by directly affecting the core of your business model, maybe that's the way to deal with them. But the other way, I was also thinking that, okay, these big brands, what usually happens, you see the escalation. Some brands will pull out. The same Unilever did a couple of times. But then at the end of the day, I think a lot of brands will face this issue like, okay, are we still portraying ourselves as good guys, or are we actually now affecting our own sales because we're not advertising enough? And then they will have to press play button on these ad campaigns and basically keep advertising, because in a way we live in the stage of monopoly where you have only a couple of platforms that are consumer facing. So that's where their audiences and customers are. So there are a lot of difficult choices, not only for Facebooks and Twitters, but also for all the brands who are doing this.
Yeah, I mean, they were just really lucky at the start that they got this dispensation to be classified like the post office. I remember when I did media law, even the printers had responsibility to make sure that what they were printing was true. And I think regulation is probably inevitable. It's already started. You know, Australia's trying to get Google and Facebook to pay publishers when they're sharing the publisher content on their platforms, or pay them more. You know, I'm personally for regulation, especially when they've got such dominant market power. Okay, moving right along. Sorry, David.
Oh, I was just going to point out that the example of Viber as a company that not only pulled their advertising, but they took the extra step of removing all of the Facebook tech from its app. So they really committed to their stance against Facebook.
Well, that's the other thing is, you know, fine, pull your Facebook advertising, but are you willing to shut down your Facebook page and lose those millions of likes you spent years building up?
That's exactly what I was talking about. That's the choices that everyone will have to make. So temporary, you can win this brand points, loyalty points, as you said, but then long term, if it really affects maybe your main sales channel, it's a tricky question, right?
Exactly. Okay, now we're going to go straight into our branded content picks of the week, and starting with Nike's latest sneaker, which has the lowest carbon footprint. This is a really, really lovely explainer video. It's just beautifully told. It's kind of authentic. It's got a lightness to it. It's just a really good piece of branded content.
Yep. And nicely showing the passion of all the people behind it, because I think that the series that Nike keeps producing are this behind the design, and that's a lovely story with passionate employees, and essentially making a nice looking sports shoe out of trash, out of garbage, and how they actually do that. That's amazing. It's sustainable and also nice personal angle. Definitely a lovely video.
Yeah, the product itself is really impressive. It's called the Space Hippie, that model of shoe, and I was looking at it on the Nike site because it was such a great explainer. I wanted to see if I could buy it. Of course, it's only available if you're a member of their like private sneaker club, and currently they're all sold out. It's not available at the moment. So I hope that they add this kind of circular economy, recycling, lower carbon footprint into more of their products, and it's not just a one-off like this. Because if it was available, I'd buy a pair of Space Hippies.
I'm the same. I was like, I'd have those, and that's. I mean, so it's obviously worked. If I'm a slightly disinterested viewer and go, that looks fantastic. Kind of the opposite end in some ways is the next one, which is for BMW, which is I guess part of a series of artist videos where artists talk about their craft, their techniques, the creative process, and it's sort of at the end, it's sort of finally woven in with BMW's approach to design and creating its cars.
It's definitely less product driven. It's much more value driven and kind of like the things that BMW wants to be associated with. This one, yes, it's about leadership, it's about design thinking and curiosity that drives all this artist decision, which was really fun. And I kind of also like how he confessed about his creative process, that he likes to work alone in complete silence, and he only needs books, computer, and paper. And he said, like, I need very little to be happy. Maybe a bed would help as well. And otherwise, I'm just creating and in the zone.
I was thinking that sounded pretty good to me too.
And I really liked the way he spoke Mandarin. His voice and pronunciation, I thought sounded really nice, which I don't often say that about.
Well, that was a funny thing. I'm learning a little bit of Chinese, and I struggle to understand individual words when a fluent speaker is talking. But I actually I was picking up the words And
Yeah,
I
me
watched
too.
it. I watched it twice just to see if I could pick up any more. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Speaking of pronunciations, that was a good good segue into the next one. This video from the Qatar Foundation about name mispronunciation really speaks to me, because I'm Simon Carney, not Simon Kearney, and I would be called Simon Kearney a lot in younger life, and it was very frustrating. But I always corrected people because it was very annoying. And then I found out that my brother wasn't correcting people, and he'd sort of almost changed his name to Kearney. It felt like he was a traitor, to be honest.
Well, I mean, I definitely also, I mean, David will probably talk a bit about this pic because he found it, but I can also correlate to that. Maybe not in Russian language, but in English. My name is Artur Akhmedzyanov, so my surname is very difficult to pronounce outside of Russia. And my surname is kind of pronounced in multiple ways because it's quite an international name. So for the surname, most people just give up, and I don't judge them. And for the name, I guess I kind of gave up in the way it's like, okay, if my name is so international and some nationalities prefer to pronounce it the way this name sounds in their language, I'm fine with that. So, but yeah, it definitely speaks to me as well.
Do you get called Arthur A?
Artur. There are different versions of it.
Arthur D2.
Yeah. David, did you have any issues like that?
Well, I had a pretty pronounceable name, so yeah, I didn't have to experience anything like that. But I saw this video, and I thought it was just a really good example of a media company like Vox working with a sponsor, the Qatar Foundation, but the piece itself stands on its own. It doesn't feel forced at all. It's, you know, it's an actual story. They're talking, they go in depth, you know, totally in step with the Vox style, you know, but it just happens to be amplifying the concerns and, you know, the values of the sponsor. So I just thought it was a really nice piece.
Yeah, great example of native advertising.
What's next?
Finally, the Google. It's a Google case study about Google Business and using the Google Business Profile, which I've always found is an underutilized piece of digital marketing. Classic Google case study.
Yeah, but I like that. It's a good example of how you can tell an effective case study with a duration of 30 seconds. Because usually we do most of the case studies around 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. And a lot of clients, they really want to push a lot of messages through. But here it is, 30 seconds, very engaging, very likable employees, and essentially clearly tells you what happens. They launched the online booking feature on Google during these times. They drove a lot of traffic. They helped the community. That's it. Very simple, concise, and easy to remember, and nicely done.
Excellent.
Yeah, boom, to the point, shareable. And yeah, and I really had not thought about the Google Business Profile as being that versatile. So, you know, not that I have a consumer-facing business like that, but anyone that does, if they're not already taking advantage of it, they should be. So yeah, this is like kind of best practices for being online.
Yeah, well, I mean, I spent a bit of time updating ours, and I remember visiting a client last year, and so in the process of doing the research, having a look at their Google Business Profile, and what Google does is it scrapes data like Street View and stuff like that. If you haven't posted anything yourself, it'll create something for you. And so I was able to show this business that the photo that represented them on Google was a photo. I don't know how it ended up, but it was like of the loading bay, and it was just full of industrial-sized rubbish bins of their office building that they're in. So it didn't present a very good face for them in the. And all they needed to do was post one photo.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, I personally definitely, usually when I search for some cafes or coffee shops, or someone wants to meet me somewhere, I usually just type it in the Google, and I see the Google page, I see how the directions work. But I agree, there are a couple of them who just don't keep it updated. And you see the street views that were from a couple of years before, where the shopping mall was just being built, and you have these loading docks, construction sites. You're like, oh, come on, guys. That's the first thing you see. because I think there is a bit of a mix. Like some are really focusing on Facebook pages to build up for their cafes, but I think Google is definitely underutilized.
Yeah. I mean, I think SEO. I suspect later this year we'll see that SEO has made a big comeback, and it's very important.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for talking to me. And that's episode 17 of the Content Show. Who would have thought we'd make it?
Nice. Thank you very much for having us.
Okay. And thank you for watching.